The sandwich hit the floor at 2:47 p.m., and Maya didn't even flinch. She'd been on her feet for 9 hours straight at Rosie's diner, the kind of place where the coffee was always lukewarm and the tips were always small. Her lunch break had been cut short twice already, and now her turkey sandwich lay face down on the cracked linoleum, a casualty of her own exhaustion. She stared at it for a moment, her stomach growling loud enough that the line cook probably heard it in the kitchen. Rent was due in 3 days. She had $47 in her bank account. That sandwich had been dinner too. "Order up, Maya," Frank called from the pass-through window. She left the sandwich on the floor, kicked it under the counter, and grabbed the plates. Table 7. A family of 4 who'd been demanding refills and extra napkins for the past hour. They wouldn't tip. She already knew. But she smiled anyway, because that's what you did when you needed this job more than your dignity. The diner was packed for a Tuesday afternoon, every booth filled with the usual crowd, truckers passing through, students from the community college nursing watered-down sodas, and the businessman types who treated waitresses like furniture. Maya moved through it all with practiced efficiency, her feet screaming in her worn-out sneakers, her smile plastered on like armor. That's when she saw him. The boy sat alone in booth 12, the corner booth that nobody liked because the vinyl was torn and the table wobbled. He was maybe 13 or 14, with pale skin that looked almost translucent under the fluorescent lights and dark hair that fell into eyes that were too old for his face. He wore an expensive-looking coat, black wool that seemed out of place in a diner where the fanciest thing on the menu was a patty melt. But it was his stillness that caught her attention. He didn't fidget, didn't look at his phone, didn't move at all. He just sat there, hands folded on the table, staring at nothing. And he looked hungry. Not the kind of hungry that made you order the biggest thing on the menu. The kind of hungry that lived in your bones, that made your skin look paper-thin and your eyes hollow. Maya had seen that look before. In the mirror, when she was 12 and living in her 3rd foster home, the one where meals were punishment or reward, never just food. She approached the booth slowly. "Hey there. You waiting for someone?" The boy's eyes lifted to hers. They were dark, almost black, and for a moment Maya felt like she was looking into something vast and ancient, something that didn't belong in a teenager's face. "No," he said. His voice was soft, barely above a whisper. "Just sitting. You need to order something if you're going to take up a booth." The words came out automatically, but she softened them with a gentle tone. "Can I get you something? Water at least." The boy looked down at his folded hands. "I don't have money." Maya's chest tightened. She knew that shame. The specific humiliation of being hungry in a place that sold food, of taking up space you couldn't afford. "When's the last time you ate?" she asked quietly. "I don't remember. 3 days maybe." For days. This kid hadn't eaten in 4 days. Maya glanced back at the kitchen. Frank was busy with orders. The other waitress, Diane, was handling her section on the far side of the diner. Nobody was paying attention to booth 12. She made a decision that would change everything. "Stay here," Maya said. "Don't move." She walked back to the counter, grabbed a glass, and filled it with water. Then she went to the kitchen and quietly made a sandwich, turkey and cheese, the same one she'd dropped earlier. She added chips from her own lunch bag and an apple she'd brought from home. Frank gave her a look. "That for a customer?" "It's mine," she said. "Taking my break." She carried the plate to booth 12 and set it down in front of the boy. His eyes went wide, fixed on the food like it was something he couldn't quite believe was real. "Eat," Maya said gently. "Slow though. If you haven't eaten in days, you'll get sick if you go too fast." The boy stared at her. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you're hungry." She slid into the booth across from him. "And because I know what it's like to be so hungry you can't think straight. Go on. Eat." His hand trembled as he reached for the sandwich. He picked it up, looked at it for a long moment, then took a small, careful bite. The sound he made, relief and gratitude and something close to pain, made Maya's throat tight. "What's your name?" she asked. He swallowed. "Damien." "I'm Maya." "You in trouble, Damien? You got somewhere to go." "I have somewhere," he said quietly. "But I can't go back yet. Not until sundown." Maya frowned. Why sundown? Damien took another bite, clearly trying to follow her advice about eating slowly. It's complicated. Try me. I've heard complicated. He studied her with those two old eyes. You wouldn't believe me. Maybe. But I'm a good listener. Damien ate half the sandwich before he spoke again. When he did, his voice was barely audible. My father is looking for me. He's been looking for 3 days. I ran away. Why'd you run? Because he's terrifying. Damien's hands tightened around the sandwich. Everyone's terrified of him. Even me. Especially me. Maya recognized that fear. She'd felt it with her second foster father, the one whose anger filled every room like smoke. Is he the reason you haven't eaten? She asked. He doesn't feed you? No. It's not that. Damien looked out the window at the bright afternoon sun. He'd feed me if I was home. But I can't go home during the day. I have to wait for dark. That doesn't make sense. I told you. It's complicated. Damien finished the sandwich and started on the chips. His color was already improving, though he still looked too thin, too fragile. Maya was about to push further when the diner door opened. The temperature dropped. That's the only way Maya could describe it. One moment it was the normal ambient warmth of a crowded diner, the next it was cold enough that she could see her breath mist in front of her face. Every conversation stopped. The man who walked through the door was tall, easily 6.5 feet, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than Maya made in 6 months. His dark hair was swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and cold beauty. His eyes, when they swept the diner, were the color of burnished gold. And they landed on Damien with an intensity that made Maya's instincts scream danger. Damien went rigid. He found me. The man crossed the diner in long, purposeful strides. People moved out of his way without seeming to realize they were doing it, their bodies responding to some primal warning their minds hadn't caught up to yet. He stopped at booth 12 and looked down at Damien. When he spoke, his voice was soft, controlled, and absolutely terrifying. 3 days, Damien. 3 days I've searched every shadow in this city. Do you have any idea what you've put me through? I'm sorry, Damien whispered. I just needed. You needed to eat. The man's eyes dropped to the empty plate, then lifted to Maya. Who gave you this food? Damien looked at Maya with something like panic. She did. But it wasn't her fault. I didn't ask. She just. I gave him my lunch, Maya interrupted, lifting her chin. She didn't know who this man was, but she recognized power when she saw it, and she'd learned a long time ago that showing fear to powerful people only made things worse. He was hungry. So I fed him. That a problem? The man stared at her. His golden eyes swept over her uniform, her name tag, her cheap sneakers and exhausted face. She felt examined, assessed, judged in the space of 3 seconds. You fed my son. It wasn't a question. If he's your son, maybe you should have done it yourself, Maya shot back. The silence in the diner was absolute. Everyone was watching now, though most people had the sense to pretend they weren't. The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. How much do I owe you for the meal? Nothing. It was mine. I don't accept charity. It wasn't charity. It was basic human decency. Maya stood up, though it meant looking up at him. Your kid was starving. I had food. End of story. Dad, please, Damien said quietly. Don't hurt her. She was just being kind. Hurt her? Maya's pulse kicked up, but she kept her voice steady. I think you should probably leave. You're scaring my customers. The man looked around the diner as if noticing the other people for the first time. Then he looked back at Maya, and when he spoke, his voice carried a weight that made the air feel heavy. What's your name? Maya Torres. Maya Torres. He said it like he was memorizing it. You showed my son kindness when he was desperate. You gave him your own food without asking for anything in return. Yeah, well, that's what decent people do. I've met very few decent people. The man reached into his jacket and pulled out a wallet. He placed $500 bills on the table. For your trouble. Maya stared at the money. $500. She could pay rent. buy groceries, fix her car. But something about taking it felt wrong, like accepting payment would turn her kindness into a transaction. I don't want your money, she said. Take it anyway. I said no. The man tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. Very few people refuse me, Miss Torres. Then you need to meet better people. Damien made a sound that might have been a laugh, quickly stifled. The man's attention snapped to his son. We're leaving, he said. Now. But. Now, Damien. Damien slid out of the booth, moving slowly like he was preparing for something unpleasant. He looked at Maya one more time. Thank you, he said. For the food. For not asking too many questions. For being kind. Take care of yourself, Maya said softly. As Damien walked toward the door, the man picked up the $500 and set it down in front of Maya again. My son whispered something to you before I arrived. What did he say? Maya frowned. He didn't whisper anything. He did. I heard him. My father owns this city. What did you think he meant? Maya looked at Damien's retreating back, then at the man in front of her. At the expensive suit, the way everyone in the diner was avoiding looking directly at him, the cold authority he carried like a cloak. I think he meant exactly what it sounded like, Maya said quietly. The man smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. Smart girl. Keep the money, Maya Tors. Consider it payment for a debt I can never fully repay. He turned and walked away, his hand coming to rest on Damien's shoulder as they left the diner. The moment the door closed behind them, the temperature returned to normal. Sound rushed back in. People started talking again, though their voices were uncertain, like they couldn't quite remember why they'd stopped. Maya looked down at the $500 on the table. Then she looked out the window, where a black car that probably cost more than her yearly salary was pulling away from the curb. Frank appeared at her elbow. What the hell just happened? I have no idea, Maya said. But that was a lie. She knew exactly what had happened. She'd fed a hungry kid and somehow caught the attention of someone powerful. Someone who owned this city. She just didn't know yet what that attention would cost her. Maya didn't think about the incident again until 3 days later when her landlord called. Miss Torres, there's been a payment made on your account. Maya was folding laundry in her studio apartment, the phone tucked between her ear and shoulder. What kind of payment? Full payment. 6 months in advance. Cashier's check came through this morning. The laundry basket slipped from her hands. That's impossible. I didn't make any payment. Says here it came from Blackwell Holdings. That mean anything to you? Blackwell. She didn't know the name, but she knew what it meant. The man from the diner. He'd paid her rent. I need to return it, Maya said. I didn't ask for this. Can't return a processed payment, Miss Torres. Money's already cleared. You're good through August. She hung up and immediately called her bank. Same story. Payments had been made on her credit card debt, her student loans, her car payment. Thousands of dollars paid off in a single morning. Maya felt sick. This wasn't kindness. This was a takeover. She grabbed her jacket and headed for the diner, but when she arrived, there was a car waiting outside. The same black car from 3 days ago. The back window rolled down. Damien looked out at her. He wants to talk to you. I don't want to talk to him, Maya said. I want him to stop paying my bills. Please. Damien's voice was soft, pleading. Just 5 minutes. He won't hurt you. I promise. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, Maya got in the car. The man, Damien's father, sat in the back seat. Up close, he was even more unsettling. His skin was too pale, his eyes too sharp, his stillness too complete. He didn't even seem to breathe. Miss Torres, he said. Thank you for coming. Stop paying my bills, Maya said immediately. I didn't ask for your help. I don't want it. You fed my son when he was starving. You gave him your own food. You asked for nothing in return. So what? That's what decent people do. I know. His voice was soft. That's why you're so rare. Maya felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. Look, I appreciate the gesture, but I take care of myself. I don't need charity from some rich guy who feels guilty. It's not charity. It's gratitude. He leaned forward slightly. Do you have any idea how long my son was wandering this city, hungry and alone? 3 days, Miss Torres. 3 days he wouldn't come home because he was afraid of me. Afraid of his own father. There was pain in those words. Real pain. Why was he afraid? Maya asked quietly. Because I've been trying to teach him strength, and instead I taught him fear. The man's jaw tightened. Because I forgot that power without compassion is tyranny. Because I've spent so long building an empire that I forgot to be a father. Damien was looking out the window, his shoulders tense. Your son told me you own this city, Maya said. What does that mean? It means I control more than you can imagine. Business, property, politics. Nothing happens in this city without my knowledge or permission. His golden eyes fixed on her. And for all that power, I couldn't keep my own son fed. But you could. A waitress making minimum wage showed my son more kindness in 5 minutes than I've shown him in months. So this is guilt, Maya said. You're paying my bills because you feel bad. I'm paying your bills because you deserve better than struggling to survive while people like me hoard wealth we'll never use. He pulled out a business card and handed it to her. My name is Lucian Blackwell. I'm offering you a position. Maya looked at the card. Blackwell Holdings. So, Lucian Blackwell. What kind of position? Whatever you want. I own restaurants, hotels, real estate companies. You could manage one. Work in corporate. Name your price. I don't understand. You showed me that I've failed at the most important thing in my life. Being a father. Lucian's voice was quiet. You showed me what kindness looks like. What it costs when you have nothing and give anyway. I want to make sure you never have to make that choice again. Maya stared at him. You can't just pay people for being decent. Why not? The world pays people for being cruel all the time. She didn't have an answer for that. Damien turned from the window. Dad's been different since that day. He came home after we left the diner and just sat in his study for hours. Then he started calling people, canceling meetings, rearranging things. He's been trying to be better. Better how? Maya asked. He actually eats dinner with me now, Damien said softly. Instead of working through it. He asks about my day. He listens. The boy's voice cracked slightly. He's trying. Lucian looked at his son with an expression Maya couldn't quite read. Maybe. And regret. So much regret. I don't need your money, Maya said finally. But if you really want to do something good with it, there's a youth shelter on 5th Street. They're always underfunded. Kids sleeping on floors because they don't have enough beds. Maybe start there. Lucian pulled out his phone and made a note. Consider it done. Anything else? Yeah. Feed your kid. Spend time with him. Be the kind of father who doesn't make his son too scared to come home. I'm working on it, Lucian said quietly. Maya reached for the door handle. Then that's all that matters. Wait. Lucian held out an envelope. This isn't payment. It's not charity. It's an apology. For all the people like me who have everything and give nothing. For a world that lets waitresses go hungry while men in suits waste food. For failing to see that the measure of a person isn't what they have, but what they give when they have nothing. Maya took the envelope. Inside was a check. Not for hundreds. For $50,000. I can't accept this, she whispered. You can. And you will. Because you're going to use it to go back to school. Lucian's voice was firm. Damien mentioned you were studying to be a teacher before you had to drop out too. You'll finish your degree. And when you graduate, if you still want to teach, I'll make sure you have a position at the best school in the city. How did you know about school? I know everything that happens in my city, Miss Torres. It's my business to know. His expression softened slightly. But this is the first time in a very long time that knowledge has led me to do something good. Maya looked at Damien, who was watching his father with cautious hope. She looked at Lucian, this powerful, terrifying man who was actually trying, to be better. Okay, she said finally. But on one condition. Name it. You have dinner with your son. Every night. No work, no phone calls, just the two of you. Lucian glanced at Damien. Done. And one more thing. Maya met his golden eyes. If I ever see Damien looking that hungry again, that scared, I'm coming for you. I don't care how much of this city you own. Something that might have been respect flickered across Lucian's face. Fair enough. Maya got out of the car, the envelope clutched in her hand. As the vehicle pulled away, she stood on the sidewalk, trying to process what had just happened. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, "Thank you for seeing me. For seeing that I could be more than I was. Damien." Another text, from a different number, "The youth shelter will receive their donation by tomorrow. Your rent and debts are settled. The scholarship account for your education is established. All I ask in return is that when you become a teacher, you remember what it's like to be hungry. And you never let a child in your classroom go without." Blackwell. Maya stood there for a long moment, then walked back into the diner. Frank looked up from the grill. "You okay? You look weird." "I'm fine," Maya said. "Just had an interesting conversation." She went back to work, serving coffee and taking orders. But everything felt different now. The weight in her pocket, that envelope that represented a future she'd thought was gone forever. The knowledge that somewhere in this city, a father and son were sitting down to dinner together because she'd given a hungry kid her sandwich. 3 weeks later, Maya enrolled in classes. 6 months after that, she graduated with her teaching degree. And when she accepted a position at Westridge Academy, the best elementary school in the city, she learned that her classroom was sponsored by an anonymous donor. On her first day, she found a card on her desk. "For the woman who taught me that wealth means nothing without compassion. May you teach that lesson to everyone you meet." Blackwell. And tucked inside, a photo. Lucian and Damien, sitting at a dinner table, both smiling. Written on the back in Damien's handwriting, "Every night." Just like you said. Maya put the photo on her desk where she could see it every day. A reminder that sometimes the smallest act of kindness could change everything. That giving when you had nothing could teach those who had everything what they'd been missing. She kept her promise. Over the years she taught hundreds of children, and never once did a child in her classroom go hungry. If she noticed someone didn't have lunch, she quietly shared hers. If a student came to school without a coat in winter, one appeared in their locker the next day. And every few months, she'd get a message. An update from Damien, who was thriving now. A note from Lucian, asking for her advice on yet another charitable foundation he was starting. The boy she'd fed one Tuesday afternoon had whispered the truth. His father owned the city. But Maya had taught them both something more important. That owning things meant nothing if you didn't use that power to lift others up. That true wealth wasn't measured in money, but in the lives you touched. That sometimes the hungriest people weren't the ones without food, but the ones without compassion. And in the end, a single sandwich had fed more than just a starving boy. It had fed a hunger for connection, for purpose, for redemption. It had changed everything. The end. Word count, 4,247 words. Continuing script, Part 2. 5 years passed. Maya stood in front of her 4th grade classroom, watching her students file in for the day. 23 faces, each one carrying stories she was learning to read. Jamie, whose parents were going through a messy divorce. Sophia, who was being raised by her grandmother. Marcus, who came to school hungry more days than not. She saw them all. And she made sure none of them fell through the cracks. It was Marcus she was watching when the classroom door opened and the principal walked in, followed by a visitor who made Maya's breath catch. Lucian Blackwell looked exactly the same as he had 5 years ago. Same expensive suit, same unsettling stillness, same golden eyes that seemed to see through everything. But something was different. The coldness was gone, replaced by something warmer. More human. "Miss Torres," Principal Henderson said, her voice unnaturally cheerful. "Mr. Blackwell is here for the tour. He's considering a very generous donation to our arts program." "Of course." Maya smiled at her students. "Class, this is Mr. Blackwell. Can we say good morning?" "Good morning, Mr. Blackwell," 23 voices chorused. Lucian's expression softened. "Good morning. Please, don't let me interrupt your lesson." Maya continued teaching, acutely aware of Lucian's presence as he stood at the back of the room, observing. She was explaining fractions using pizza slices when she noticed Marcus staring at the visual aid with an intensity that had nothing to do with math. The boy was hungry. After the lesson, she dismissed the class for recess. As the children filed out, she caught Marcus's arm gently. "Hey buddy. You okay?" "I'm fine, Miss Torres." "When's the last time you ate?" Marcus looked down. "Breakfast yesterday." 24 hours. Maya's heart clenched. She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a granola bar and an apple. "These now. And come see me after school. I'm going to pack you something to take home, okay?" "Thank you," Marcus whispered, clutching the food like it was precious. As the boy left, Maya became aware of Lucian standing beside her desk. Principal Henderson had tactfully disappeared. "You do that often," he said. It wasn't a question. "Every day," Maya said simply. "There are 6 kids in this school who don't get enough food at home. I keep a stock drawer." "And the school doesn't provide lunch assistance?" "They do, but there's stigma. Some parents won't sign up because they're too proud. Some kids slip through the paperwork. So I handle it quietly." Lucian was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Damien told me to come see you today. He said you'd be doing exactly this." Maya finally looked at him. "How is Damien?" "Thriving. He's 16 now, excelling in school, has friends. Actual friends, not people who are scared of him or sucking up to me." Lucian's voice carried genuine warmth. "He volunteers at that youth shelter you told me about. Says he wants to help kids who feel invisible." "He was never invisible," Maya said softly. "He was just hungry. And scared." "I know." Lucian pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. Damien, older now, taller, healthy, smiling as he helped serve food at a shelter. "He reminds me constantly. Says that day in your diner was the day he learned what real power looks like." Maya studied the photo. "He looks happy." "He is. Because I finally learned to be the father he needed instead of the tyrant I thought power required." Lucian put the phone away. "You taught me that, Maya. In 5 minutes, with one sandwich, you taught me more about leadership than I'd learned in 4 decades of ruling this city. I didn't teach you anything. I just fed a hungry kid. You showed me that the measure of a man isn't what he controls, but who he protects." Lucian's golden eyes met hers. "Do you know what I've done with that lesson? The youth shelter. I heard you've been funding expansions. That's just the beginning. I've started a foundation. Anonymous meals for every school in the district. No paperwork, no stigma. Kids scan their IDs at lunch, and the meal is free. No one knows who's on assistance and who isn't." Maya felt her throat tighten. "That's thousands of kids. 47,000 to be exact." Lucian smiled slightly. "Costs me less than I spend on one of my hotels, but it means 47,000 children eat lunch every day. Because a waitress once showed my son that kindness costs nothing but means everything." "You did that," Maya said softly. "I just gave him a sandwich. You gave him dignity. There's a difference." Lucian gestured to the empty classroom. "May I tell you why I'm really here? Principal Henderson said you're donating to the arts program. I'm donating $5 million to this school. New playground, updated computers, full arts and music programs, and a complete overhaul of the cafeteria to serve healthier meals." Lucian pulled out a folder. "But there's a condition." Maya stiffened. "What condition?" "That you help me decide where every dollar goes. You see these kids every day. You know what they need. I have the money, but you have the wisdom. I'm just a teacher. You're the woman who changed my life with a turkey sandwich." Lucian's voice was intense. "You're the person who sees the invisible kids. Who gives when you have nothing. Who understands that real wealth isn't what you own, but what you give away." Maya looked at the folder, then at Lucian. "Why now?" "It's been 5 years. Because 5 years ago, I was still learning the lesson. I funded the shelter, paid your debts, helped you become a teacher. But I was still doing it transactionally. Give money, fix problem, move on." Lucian's expression turned serious. "But Damien kept pushing me. kept asking, "What would Miss Torres do?" And I realized I wasn't asking the right question. What's the right question? Not, "How do I fix this?" but, "How do I understand this?" Lucian gestured around the classroom. "I've never been hungry, Maya. Never struggled to pay rent. Never had to choose between food and medicine. I need someone who has. Someone who remembers what it's like to have nothing. Someone who won't let me forget." "You want me to be your conscience," Maya said slowly. "I want you to be my partner. In every charitable foundation I run, every program I fund, every decision I make about how to use my wealth for good." Lucian's voice was quiet but firm. "Because 5 years ago, you gave me something more valuable than any business deal I've ever made. You gave me perspective. And I don't want to lose that." Maya sat down at her desk, overwhelmed. "I don't know anything about running foundations." "You know what matters. That's more important than knowing finance or law." Lucian pulled up a chair. "Let me tell you what I'm working on. There's a proposal to demolish 3 blocks of low-income housing to build luxury condos. The residents will be displaced. Most won't be able to afford rent anywhere else in the city." "That's happening everywhere," Maya said bitterly. "Developers don't care about the people they displace." "I'm the developer." Maya's head snapped up. "What?" "I own the property. My company filed the demolition permits. It's a very profitable project. 20 million in revenue projected." Lucian's expression was unreadable. 3 months ago, I would have approved it without a second thought. But then Damien asked me what you would say. So I'm asking you now. What would you say? "I'd say those are people's homes. They have nowhere else to go." "I know. So here's what I'm proposing instead." Lucian pulled out architectural drawings. "We renovate instead of demolish. Update the buildings, make them safe and modern. Keep the rent affordable, subsidized by profits from my other properties. Add a community center, a medical clinic, a job training program." Maya stared at the drawings. They were beautiful, thoughtful, designed with the actual residents in mind. "This will cost you money," she said. "It will cost me profit. There's a difference." Lucian's voice was firm. "I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. What I don't have is the ability to see what you see. To understand what these families need. So you want me to tell you? I want you to help me do better. Constantly. Forever." Lucian leaned forward. "Maya, I'm not a good man. I'm a powerful man trying to learn how to use that power for something other than accumulating more power. And I can't do it alone." Maya looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who'd once seemed so cold and terrifying now looked almost vulnerable. Uncertain. Human. "If I do this," she said slowly, "I have conditions." "Name them." "I keep teaching. That's non-negotiable. These kids need consistency." "Agreed. And I don't become some figurehead. If I'm helping make decisions, I actually make decisions. You don't just pretend to listen and then do what you want anyway." "Agreed. And if I see you backsliding, if I see you making choices based on profit instead of people, I walk away. No matter how much money you're throwing at problems." Lucian smiled. "Agreed. Any other conditions?" Maya thought about it. "Dinner. Once a week. You, me, and Damien. I want to see that you're still having those family dinners. That you're still being the father he needs." "Done." Lucian extended his hand. "Partners." Maya shook it. His grip was firm, cool, but genuine. "Partners." The partnership changed everything, but not in the way Maya expected. She didn't quit teaching. Instead, she spent her evenings and weekends in meetings with Lucian, reviewing proposals, visiting sites, talking to the people who would be affected by their decisions. Every project they worked on, she insisted on hearing from the community first. The housing project went ahead with renovations. 100 families kept their homes. The community center opened with programs for kids, seniors, and job seekers. The medical clinic provided free care to anyone who needed it. But it was the small things that mattered most to Maya. The after-school programs that kept kids safe while parents worked. The food pantry that operated without paperwork or questions. The emergency fund for families facing eviction or medical crisis. "You're bankrupting me," Lucian said one evening, but he was smiling. They were having dinner at his house, one of their weekly meetings with Damien. The teenager had grown into a thoughtful young man, sharp-eyed and kind in equal measure. "You're still making millions," Maya countered. "Just slightly fewer millions." "True. But I sleep better now." Lucian passed the salad bowl. "Damien's been accepted to Princeton. Full scholarship, but I think we both know he didn't need it." "Congratulations," Maya said to Damien. "What are you studying?" "Social work. And business." Damien grinned. "I figure I'll need both if I'm going to take over Dad's foundations eventually." "You want to run the foundations?" Lucian asked, surprised. "Someone has to make sure you two don't forget the lessons Miss Torres taught us." Damien's expression turned serious. "That day in the diner changed everything, you know. Not just because Miss Torres fed me, but because she saw me. Really saw me. Not as your son, not as some rich kid, just as a hungry teenager who needed help." "I didn't do anything special," Maya said. "You did." Damien's voice was firm. "You gave me hope that people could be kind without wanting something in return. You showed Dad that power without compassion is just tyranny. And you taught us both that the smallest acts of generosity can change someone's entire world." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "You were never small, Damien. You were just invisible to people who weren't looking." "Exactly. And now Dad makes sure to look." Damien turned to his father. "Right. Every day," Lucian said quietly. "Because of her." After dinner, Lucian walked Maya to her car. The night was cool, and the city lights sprawled below them from his hillside estate. "I never thanked you properly," Lucian said. "For what?" "You've done more than enough. For saving my son. For saving me." Lucian's voice was soft. "I was drowning in power and money and control, and I didn't even realize I'd lost the only thing that mattered. Being a father. Being human." "You were always human, Lucian. You just forgot." "I need you to promise me something." Maya turned to face him. "What?" "Don't ever let me forget again. No matter how successful the foundations become, no matter how much good we do, don't let me lose sight of why we started." Lucian's golden eyes were intense. "Keep me honest. Keep me human." "I promise," Maya said. "And let me promise you something in return." Lucian pulled out an envelope. "This is a trust. For you, for your family, for any children you have someday. You'll never have to worry about money again. You'll never have to choose between paying rent and feeding someone who's hungry." Maya started to protest, but Lucian held up his hand. "This isn't charity. It's not even gratitude. It's justice." His voice was firm. "You gave when you had nothing. You've spent 5 years helping me redistribute wealth I never should have hoarded in the first place. You've made it possible for thousands of people to have better lives. This is your share of that success. I didn't do it for money." "I know. That's exactly why you deserve it." Lucian pressed the envelope into her hands. "Besides," Damien insisted. "He said if I didn't make sure you were taken care of, he'd disown me." "Despite everything," Maya laughed. "He would too. He absolutely would. He's become quite the moral authority in our household." Lucian smiled. "I'm very proud of him." "You should be. He's an amazing person. Because someone showed him what amazing people look like." Lucian's expression turned serious. "Maya, I know I've said this before, but I need to say it again. What you did that day at the diner, you didn't just save a hungry teenager. You saved a family. You saved me from becoming a monster. You saved Damien from growing up afraid of his own father." "I just gave him a sandwich," Maya said, but her voice was thick with emotion. "You gave us everything." Lucian took a step back. "Now get home safe. And think about the trust. You don't have to accept it today, but know that it's there. Security. Freedom. The same gift you gave us, just in a different form." Maya drove home in a daze, the envelope sitting on her passenger seat. She didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, she thought about the past 5 years, about how one small act had rippled outward into something she never could have imagined. A foundation feeding thousands of children. housing that stayed affordable, medical care for those who couldn't pay, families that didn't have to choose between food and rent, and in the center of it all, a father and son who'd found their way back to each other. All because she'd given a hungry kid her lunch. 10 years after that day at the diner, Maya stood at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Torres Blackwell Community Center. The name still felt surreal. It should just be the Blackwell Center, she'd argued when Lucian first told her. It should be the Torres Center, he'd countered. But Damien suggested a compromise. The center would serve 3 neighborhoods, providing meals, healthcare, education programs, job training, and emergency assistance. It was the flagship of everything they'd built together over the past decade. Damien, now 24 and working full-time in the foundation, stood beside her at the podium. Lucian stood on her other side. And in the audience were hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by their work. 10 years ago, Maya began, her voice carrying across the crowd, I was a waitress barely making rent. I gave a hungry kid my lunch because it was the right thing to do. I never imagined that one sandwich would lead to this. She gestured to the center behind her, then to the crowd. But that's the thing about kindness. You never know how far it will reach. You never know whose life you'll change. You never know what ripples will spread from one small act of compassion. She looked at Damien, then at Lucian. These 2 men taught me that power isn't about what you control. It's about what you give away. That wealth means nothing if it's hoarded. That being human means seeing the humanity in everyone around you. Her voice strengthened. This center isn't about charity. It's about dignity. It's about recognizing that everyone deserves to be fed, to be healthy, to be safe, to be seen. It's about building a world where no child has to be hungry, where no parent has to choose between medicine and food, where no one is invisible. The crowd erupted in applause. Maya stepped back, overwhelmed. Damien took the podium next. Miss Torres likes to say she just gave me a sandwich. But what she really gave me was proof that people could be kind without wanting anything in return. That someone could see me as more than just the son of a powerful man. That I mattered not because of who my father was, but because I was a human being who was suffering. His voice was thick with emotion. She gave my father the wake-up call he needed. And together, they've built something that will outlive all of us. A network of support that catches people before they fall. That lifts up those who've been knocked down. That sees the invisible and says, you matter. Finally, Lucian spoke. He was older now, gray threading through his dark hair, but his presence was still commanding. I used to believe power was about control. About owning things. About being feared and respected and untouchable. He paused. I was wrong about everything. He looked directly at Maya. Real power is about service. About using everything you have to make life better for those who have nothing. About seeing your wealth not as something to protect, but as a tool to build a better world. His voice dropped, intimate despite the microphone. Maya Torres gave my son a sandwich when she had nothing. And in return, she gave me everything. Purpose. Perspective. Humanity. This center, these programs, this foundation, it's all her. I just provided the money. She provided the heart. The applause was deafening. After the ceremony, after the ribbon cutting and the tours and the speeches, Maya found herself alone in what would be the center's main dining hall. Lucian and Damien found her there, standing in the empty space that would soon serve thousands of meals. What are you thinking? Damien asked. I'm thinking about that day, Maya said softly. When I dropped my sandwich on the floor and didn't even have time to be upset about it because I was too busy working. And how later, I gave the replacement sandwich to you, and I went home hungry that night. I never knew that, Damien said, stricken. It's okay. It was worth it. Maya smiled. Because look what came from that choice. Look at what we've built. What you built, Lucian corrected gently. We're just following your lead. No. Maya shook her head. This is all of us. Your power, Damien's passion, and yes, my perspective. But together. Always together. She looked around the empty hall, imagining it full of people, full of life, full of hope. Somewhere out there, there's a kid who's hungry right now. Who's scared. who feels invisible. And tomorrow or next week or next year, they'll walk into the center. And someone will see them. Someone will feed them. Someone will remind them that they matter. Her voice broke slightly. That's what this is about. Not the money. Not the buildings. Not the programs. It's about making sure no one ever has to feel the way I felt, the way Damien felt, the way thousands of people feel every day. Forgotten. Invisible. Unworthy of basic kindness. Lucian put a hand on her shoulder. You made sure they'll never be invisible again. 20 years after that day in the diner, Maya received a letter. She was retired from teaching now, though she still worked with the foundation. The Torres Blackwell centers had expanded to 17 cities. Millions of meals served. Hundreds of thousands of people helped. Lives changed in ways that couldn't be measured. The letter came from a young woman named Sarah. Dear Miss Torres, you don't know me, but you changed my life. 15 years ago, I was a hungry kid in your 4th grade class. You used to slip me granola bars and apples from your desk drawer, like it was no big deal. You never made me feel ashamed. You just made sure I wasn't hungry. Because of you, I stayed in school. I graduated. I went to college on a scholarship from the Blackwell Foundation. And now I'm a teacher too, in a school in the neighborhood where I grew up. I keep a drawer full of snacks, just like you did. And when I see a kid who's hungry, I think about you. About how one person's kindness can change everything. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Thank you for teaching me that compassion is the most important lesson anyone can learn. And thank you for showing me what kind of teacher, what kind of person I want to be. With eternal gratitude, Sarah Mitchell. Maya read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Then she forwarded it to Lucian and Damien. Damien called within minutes. Did you see this? This is everything, Miss Torres. This is exactly what we've been working toward. One person at a time, Maya said softly. That's how the world changes. One sandwich. One granola bar. One moment of seeing someone who feels invisible. You taught us that, Damien said. And now we're teaching thousands of others. The ripples just keep spreading. That night, Maya had dinner with Lucian and Damien like they did every week. 2 decades, and they'd never missed their weekly meal together. Do you ever think about that day? Damien asked. Really think about it? All the time, Maya admitted. It was the day everything changed. For all of us, Lucian said quietly. I was lost. Powerful but empty. I had everything and nothing. And then you showed me what actually mattered. You showed yourself, Maya corrected. I just held up a mirror. Maybe. Lucian smiled. But it was your hand holding that mirror. Your compassion reflecting back at me. Your unwillingness to accept that wealth without purpose was enough. Damien raised his glass. To Maya Torres, the woman who changed the world with a turkey sandwich. To kindness, Maya countered, raising her own glass. The only power that really matters. To kindness, Lucian echoed. And to the people brave enough to show it when they have nothing to give. They drank, and in that moment, Maya felt the weight of every choice she'd made. Every hungry child she'd fed. Every family she'd helped. Every life that had been touched by one small act of compassion that had rippled outward into something magnificent. She thought about the girl she'd been 20 years ago. Exhausted, struggling, her own sandwich on the floor. Making the choice to give her replacement lunch to a hungry boy because it was the right thing to do, even though it cost her. She'd gone home hungry that night. But she'd fed something bigger than herself. She'd fed hope, change, redemption. And in the end, that had fed the world. 30 years after the sandwich. Maya stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom, adjusting the silver necklace Damien had given her for her 60th birthday. Behind her, photographs covered the dresser. Her classroom, full of smiling students. The groundbreaking of the 17th Torres Blackwell Center. Lucian and Damien at various stages of life, growing older, growing closer. And in the center, faded and worn, a photograph she'd taken on her phone that day in the diner. The empty plate where Damien's sandwich had been. She'd snapped it without thinking, a server's habit of documenting her section. She'd never imagined she'd frame it one day. Her phone rang. Damien's name flashed on the screen. "I'm on my way," she said before he could speak. "I know I'm running late. Actually, that's not why I'm calling." Damien's voice carried an odd tone. Emotional. Excited. "Miss Torres, you need to turn on the news. Channel 7. Right now." Maya grabbed the remote and switched on the television. A news anchor sat at the desk, and behind her, the familiar logo of the Torres Blackwell Foundation filled the screen. "Breaking news this evening," the anchor said. "The Torres Blackwell Foundation, known for its extensive humanitarian work, has just been awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. But in an unprecedented move, the foundation has requested that the medal be presented not to its founders, but to a woman many consider the true heart of the organization. Maya Torres, a retired fourth-grade teacher whose single act of kindness 30 years ago sparked a revolution in charitable giving." Maya's hand flew to her mouth. The screen cut to footage. Damien, now 44, standing at a podium in Washington, D.C. beside him, Lucian, 70 but still commanding, his golden eyes bright with emotion. "My father and I are grateful for this recognition," Damien said to the assembled press. "But we cannot accept it in good conscience. Everything we've built, every life we've touched, every meal we've served, every family we've helped, it all began with Maya Torres. A waitress who gave her lunch to a hungry teenager she'd never met, who asked for nothing in return, who showed us that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in dignity given freely." Lucian stepped forward. 30 years ago, I was the richest man in this city. And the poorest father. I had power without purpose. Wealth without wisdom. My son was starving, not just for food, but for proof that goodness existed in the world. His voice grew thick. Maya Torres gave him both. And in doing so, she saved us. She taught us that every act of kindness creates ripples that never stop spreading. That giving when you have nothing is the truest form of generosity. That seeing the invisible is the highest form of power. The screen showed statistics. Since its founding, the Torres Blackwell Foundation had served 47 million meals, provided housing assistance to 2.3 million families, offered free healthcare to 8 million people, given scholarships to 500,000 students, created 89,000 jobs through training programs. All of this, Damien continued on screen, because one woman chose kindness over convenience, compassion over self-preservation, because she saw a hungry boy and didn't look away. Maya's phone exploded with notifications. Texts, calls, emails flooding in. But she couldn't look away from the television. The news anchor returned. Miss Torres could not be reached for comment, but sources say she's expected to attend tonight's gala celebrating the foundation's 30th anniversary. "Back to you, Tom." Maya's doorbell rang. She opened it to find a black car waiting at the curb, the same car that had pulled up outside the diner 3 decades ago. But this time, Damien himself stood at her door, not a frightened teenager but a confident man with gray threading through his dark hair and his father's golden eyes. "Surprise," he said, grinning. "You did this," Maya said, her voice breaking. "You nominated me." "We both did. Dad and I, unanimously." Damien took her hands. "Miss Torres, you changed everything. Not just for us, but for millions of people. You deserve to be recognized. I just gave you a sandwich. You gave us a blueprint for how to be human." Damien's expression turned serious. "Do you know what Dad said when we were writing the nomination?" He said, "Maya Torres taught me that I was living wrong. That accumulating power while people suffered wasn't strength, it was cowardice disguised as success." Maya felt tears slide down her cheeks. "Come on," Damien said gently. "Dad's waiting at the gala. And there's someone else who wants to meet you." The ballroom glittered with lights and people. Maya recognized faces from the foundation, from the centers, from years of work. But Damien led her past all of them to a quiet corner where Lucian stood with a young woman who looked vaguely familiar. "Maya," Lucian said, embracing her warmly. His hair was fully gray now, his face lined, but his eyes still held that intensity she remembered. "Forgive the theatrics." Damien insisted on the surprise. "You could have warned me," Maya said, but she was smiling. And miss the look on your face? Lucian's expression softened. Never. Besides, you've spent 3 decades deflecting credit. Someone had to force you to accept recognition. There's someone we want you to meet, Damien said, gesturing to the young woman. She stepped forward, and Maya's breath caught. She was maybe 25, with kind eyes and a familiar tilt to her smile. Miss Torres, this is Elena, Damien said. My daughter. Your goddaughter, though you didn't know it yet. Your daughter, Maya whispered. Damien, I didn't even know you had children. We kept our family life private. Dad's lessons about boundaries stuck. Damien put his arm around his daughter. But Elena wanted to meet you tonight. She's been asking about the sandwich story since she was 5 years old. Elena extended her hand, then changed her mind and pulled Maya into a hug. Grandmother Maya, she said. That's what Dad calls you when he tells the story. About how you saved him and Grandpa Lucian with one act of kindness. I'm not anyone's grandmother, Maya protested weakly, but she was holding the girl tight. You are to me, Elena said firmly. Dad says you're the reason our family exists. The reason he learned what real love looks like. The reason Grandpa learned to be human. Over Elena's shoulder, Maya saw Lucian wipe his eyes. I'm starting my own foundation, Elena continued, pulling back. For kids aging out of foster care. Dad said I should ask for your advice. That you'd understand what they need. I was a foster kid, Maya said softly. Bounced around until I aged out at 18. I know. Dad told me. He said you knew what it felt like to be invisible. And that's why you made sure no one else ever had to feel that way. Elena's eyes were bright. Will you help me? Help me build something that matters. Maya looked at Damien, at Lucian, at this young woman who carried their legacy forward. 3 generations of change, all sparked by one moment of compassion. Yes, Maya said. Of course I'll help you. The gala was beautiful. Speeches were made, awards presented, donors celebrated. But Maya would remember only one moment. Late in the evening, she found herself on the balcony with Lucian and Damien, looking out over the city that had changed so much in 30 years. Do you ever regret it? Lucian asked quietly. Giving that sandwich to a strange kid? It changed your whole life. Every day, Maya said, and when they both looked alarmed, she smiled. I regret that I didn't have 2 sandwiches. That I couldn't feed every hungry person I saw. That the world needs foundations and medals and galas to convince people to show basic kindness. She looked at them both. But I don't regret you. Either of you. I don't regret what we built together. And I don't regret learning that one person really can change the world. You just have to be brave enough to give when you have nothing. You changed us, Damien said. And we've spent 3 decades trying to pay it forward. You've done more than that. Maya gestured to the gala, to the city beyond. You've created a legacy of compassion. You've taught thousands of people that wealth is a responsibility, not a right. That seeing the invisible is everyone's job. Lucian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'm dying, Maya. The words fell like stones. What? Cancer. Stage 4. I have perhaps 6 months. Lucian's voice was calm, accepting. I'm telling you because you deserve to know. And because I need you to promise me something. Anything, Maya whispered. Keep Damien honest. Keep Elena inspired. Keep the foundation true to its purpose. Lucian took her hand. 30 years ago, you saved my life by teaching me how to live it. Now I'm asking you to make sure that lesson outlives me. I promise, Maya said, tears streaming down her face. Don't cry. Lucian smiled. I've had 30 years I never would have had without you. 30 years of being a real father. Of knowing my son. Of meeting my granddaughter. Of doing work that actually matters. You gave me that. You gave me everything. Damien was crying silently, his hand on his father's shoulder. The sandwich, Lucian said softly. That stupid, beautiful sandwich. It saved us all. 6 months later, Maya stood at Lucian's funeral and told the story one more time. About a hungry boy in a diner. About a waitress who gave away her lunch. About a father who learned what really mattered. He spent 30 years trying to repay a debt that could never be repaid, Maya said to the crowd of thousands. But that was never the point. The point was that kindness creates more kindness. That generosity inspires generosity. That one person choosing compassion can change everything. She looked at Damien, holding his daughter close. At Elena, already planning her foundation. At the faces in the crowd, people fed, housed, helped, saved by the work that had started with one sandwich. Lucian Blackwell was many things, Maya continued. Powerful, wealthy. But in the end he was something better. He was kind. He was generous. He was human. And he taught all of us that the only wealth that matters is what we give away. After the service, Elena found Maya in the crowd. Grandmother Maya, I brought you something. She handed Maya a worn notebook. Inside, in Lucian's precise handwriting, were pages and pages of notes. Projects planned. Dreams for the foundation. Instructions for Damien and Elena. And on the last page, a letter. Dearest Maya, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But before I go, I need to say thank you one final time. Thank you for the sandwich. Thank you for the lesson. Thank you for 30 years of friendship, partnership, and purpose. You taught me that true power is service. That real wealth is compassion. That being human means seeing the humanity in everyone. I hope I learned the lesson well. I hope I made you proud. And I hope that somewhere, another waitress is giving another hungry kid her lunch, and starting this beautiful cycle all over again. With eternal gratitude and love, Lucian. Maya closed the notebook and held it to her chest, standing in a room full of people whose lives had been changed by one act of kindness that had rippled across 3 decades. The sandwich was long gone. But its impact would never die. It would feed the world forever.